Ladies and gentlemen, let's cut the fluff. Let's talk about something nobody brings up at dinner tables, in Sunday sermons, or at morning meetings. Let's talk about what it really means when a woman sleeps alone at home. It's not always loneliness. It's not always freedom. And it's definitely not always what people imagine. Solitude isn't weakness. It's where resilience is built. This truth has been quietly living in the corners of human experience, especially in the lives of women who have had to find their strength in the unlit, unnoticed, and often underestimated spaces. When a woman sleeps alone at home, it isn't simply about being without company. It isn't the absence of another person that defines the moment. It's the presence of herself, fully, without filters, distractions, or pretenses. That solitude is a forge, a place where resilience is hammered out in silence, where courage isn't declared but quietly chosen. There's a difference between being alone and being lonely. Solitude, by its very nature, strips away the noise. In those hours when the world outside quiets down, and there's nothing left but the sound of your own breathing and the occasional whisper of wind against the glass, that's where truth settles in. It's in those unguarded, unrecorded moments where a woman can stop performing, stop explaining, and simply exist as she is. And in that rawness, resilience is born, because to face yourself in the quiet, with no audience and no applause, takes a kind of strength the world rarely acknowledges. We are conditioned to associate strength with noise, with declarations, with people standing in front of crowds making grand promises or lifting heavy things. But real strength often grows in the dark, in rooms no one else enters, in decisions no one else sees. Resilience, especially for women, is built in the moments when fear brushes against the skin, when uncertainty hums in the air, and the only thing left to hold on to is the knowledge that morning will come. It's built when a woman locks the door behind her, knowing she's both the protector and the protected. It's built when she sits with the ache of absence and still makes peace with the space it leaves. There's a kind of power in choosing solitude, in not chasing distraction to fill every quiet minute, because in that space you learn yourself. You learn what thoughts haunt you, what memories warm you, what fears still grip your throat. You learn the weight of your own name, and with every passing hour, as the darkness outside grows and then retreats, you build the kind of resilience that isn't easily shaken. It's not loud. It doesn't announce itself. But it's steady, like the tide, and it carries you forward. For centuries, women have found themselves alone in rooms, in houses, in lives that demanded they either crumble or find a way to survive. Solitude wasn't always a choice. It was forced by war, by abandonment, by death, by betrayal. And in those rooms, with nothing but their own wits and will, they learned to stitch their hearts back together, to light their own fires, to hold their own ground. That legacy of silent strength lives on in every woman who locks her door at night and stands her ground against whatever ghosts may linger. In solitude, you learn to be your own witness. No one is there to clap when you resist old habits. No one sees when you confront a memory you've been avoiding. No one hears the conversations you have with yourself about the life you've built and the life you still want. And that is where resilience grows, not from being watched, but from watching yourself honestly, without soft lighting or clever captions, from seeing your flaws and choosing to stay anyway, from recognizing your fears and refusing to let them shrink you. It takes a particular kind of courage to sit in an empty house with nothing to distract you from yourself. The temptation to reach for a screen, a drink, a voice on the other end of a phone line is always there. But when you resist that, when you choose to feel the weight of your own company, you grow. Every uncomfortable thought you face Every moment of silence you endure adds a layer to your resilience. It reminds you that you are capable of sitting with discomfort and not being destroyed by it. Resilience isn't an event, it's a practice. It's built one lonely night at a time, one quiet realization, one small decision to get up in the morning and keep going. When no one else is watching, when no one else is cheering, when there's no external validation to be found, that's when it matters most. The strength you build in solitude is the kind that lasts because it's not built for display. It's built for survival. For carrying yourself through the storms no one else sees, for holding yourself upright when the weight gets unbearable, and in that, solitude becomes sacred, not because it's easy or comfortable, but because it strips away the unnecessary. It reveals the bones of who you are, and it teaches you that resilience isn't a gift you're given, it's something you build, nail by nail, moment by moment, in the dark. It's something you claim, not because you want to, but because you have to. And in that claiming, you discover parts of yourself you wouldn't have met any other way. A woman alone at night knows things others don't. She knows the sound of her own breath when fear creeps in. She knows how to steady trembling hands. She knows how to anchor herself with simple things, the warmth of a cup of tea, the familiar weight of a favorite blanket, the memory of a voice that once promised safety. And each of those small acts, those quiet comforts, adds a brick to the wall of her resilience. Not a wall that keeps people out, but one that keeps her steady when the winds rise. In solitude, you learn to be your own anchor. You learn to trust your instincts, to listen to the warnings in your bones, to follow the tug in your chest that tells you when something's off. You stop waiting for someone else to save you. You realize you were always the safety net you needed. And while the world might try to convince you that solitude is a kind of failure, you'll know the truth. That it's a crucible, a place where the weak parts burn away and what's left is steel. The resilience built in solitude doesn't roar. It doesn't demand attention. It hums low and steady in the background of your life. It's the voice that says, "I've been through worse and made it out the other side." It's the memory of 100 nights where you thought you might break but didn't. It's the knowledge that you can be alone with nothing but your own thoughts and still find peace. And over time it changes you. It teaches you to stop fearing silence, to stop chasing noise. It teaches you that your worth isn't measured by how many people fill your space, but by how you carry yourself when it's just you. That you don't need an audience to matter. That your story, your strength, your resilience is valid even when no one else is around to witness it. The night belongs to her, and so does everything that follows. This isn't just a poetic line or a casual phrase thrown into conversation. It's a reality that pulses beneath the surface of every quiet evening when a woman locks her door and stands in a space she calls her own. The night, often romanticized or feared, is a different kind of territory when it's hers. Not borrowed, not shared, not overseen. It stretches out in front of her with all its quiet, unknown hours, offering a canvas that most overlook, a canvas on which she sketches her strength, her thoughts, her rebellion, and her healing. There's something about the night that strips the world down. The noise softens, the faces disappear, the demands fall silent. In that dim space between dusk and dawn, she reclaims herself. The world so often pulls her apart in 100 directions during the day: titles, roles, conversations, expectations. But at night, when the doors are shut and the outside world can no longer touch her, the night becomes hers in a way that no one else can take. It isn't always easy. Sometimes it carries echoes of old fears, the ache of loneliness, or the restless hum of unfinished thoughts. Yet still, it belongs to her. This ownership isn't something handed over or politely granted. It's claimed. It's fought for in small, quiet ways, in choosing what voice fills the room, whether it's a favorite song or absolute silence. In deciding which light stays on, which book rests by the bed, which thoughts get entertained and which get exiled. Every decision, however small, is hers alone in the night. That control, often denied or shared during the day, returns in the darkness. And while the world sleeps, she shapes her own little corner of it without interruption. When the world associates night with vulnerability, it forgets the other side of the story. There's danger, yes. There's uncertainty, yes, but there's also freedom in those hours. The freedom to unravel and rebuild without an audience. To sit in the middle of a quiet room with every mask peeled off, with every expectation set down like a heavy coat at the door. She owns the weight of the night, its strange stillness, and the untamed territory of her own mind when there's no one else to fill the space. Everything that follows belongs to her too, and that might be the part the world underestimates the most. Because it's not just about the night itself. It's about what it shapes in her, the realizations that come when no one else is speaking, the decisions made when no one else is watching, the tiny victories of surviving the doubts, the silence, the ache, and waking up stronger for it. Those quiet, uncelebrated triumphs are the foundation for every bold, loud moment that comes later. Every time she speaks up, takes a risk, or walks away from what no longer serves her, it's built on nights like these. In the hush of those hours, she writes mental letters she'll never send, confronts ghosts no one else knows haunt her, and has conversations with herself that shift the ground beneath her feet. There's a clarity in the night that daylight often dilutes. Without the pressure to perform or appease, truth feels sharper, decisions feel heavier, and courage feels closer. She owns every word spoken in the dark, every tear shed into a pillow, every burst of laughter that surprises her when she thought she was too tired to feel anything at all. That ownership extends beyond the moment. The choices made in solitude ripple into daylight. The promises she makes to herself at 2 a.m. shape how she moves through crowded rooms, how she answers to her name, how she holds her ground when others expect her to fold. The night in all its complexity becomes a training ground for resilience and self-trust. No one else may see it, but she feels it in her bones, in her breath, in the steadiness of her step the next morning. The world so often paints night as something to survive, but for her, it's something to claim. It's where she gets to decide what stays and what goes, who matters and who doesn't, which scars still hurt, and which ones have become part of her armor. It's a space without witnesses, where vulnerability isn't a risk but a right, where strength isn't measured in volume but in the quiet decision to keep going, and in that space something else happens. She starts to realize that she's never truly powerless, no matter how heavy the day might have been. The night reminds her that control is a series of small, relentless choices: to light the candle, to open the window, to cry without apologizing, to dream without censoring herself, to imagine new versions of her life, to map out silent revolutions she'll start in her own way, on her own time. Every woman who's ever stood alone in a room at night understands the language of it. The way shadows stretch and thoughts multiply, the way fears get louder before they fade, the way hope can flicker when you least expect it, and how sometimes in the most unexpected, quiet hour, clarity arrives like a sudden gust of air, cutting through all the heaviness. Those moments, though unseen by the world, belong to her, and their power is real. The night isn't a passive thing. It doesn't simply happen to her. She shapes it, claims it, bends it to her will, or lets it cradle her when she's too tired to fight. Some nights she might rage against it, filling the room with music or movement. Other nights she might lay still, letting it settle around her like a heavy, familiar blanket. But either way, it's hers. Every flicker of thought, every quiet plan, every whispered memory. In those hours, she's not performing for anyone. There's no audience, no expectation, no role to play. And in that authenticity, she's both the most vulnerable and the most powerful version of herself. The things born in the night aren't always pretty. Some are messy, some painful, some half-formed, but they're hers. The decisions, the dreams, the heartbreaks acknowledged, and the new hopes quietly unfolding. The night holds it all, and when dawn comes it brings with it the residue of those hours, strength tempered in silence, choices made without influence, a clearer sense of what matters and what doesn't. She doesn't have to explain it to anyone. The world might see the aftermath a shift in how she carries herself, a firmer no, a sudden yes, an unshakable calm in the face of nonsense, but they won't know the conversations that led there. They won't see the long hours of silence, the battles fought without an audience, the tears or the stubborn, exhausted laughter. But she'll know, and it's enough. Because the night belongs to her, and so does everything that follows. And so when the world tries to tell its half, stories about what it means for a woman to be alone at night, it misses the marrow of it. It clings to old, tired tropes about fragility and fear, about loneliness being a punishment rather than a choice, about silence being a sign of weakness rather than a mark of power. But the truth moves differently in those hours. It breathes slower, it sharpens, it hums. The woman who finds herself alone in her own space, in her own company, in her own silence, is not waiting for rescue. She's not sitting in the dark because no one else showed up. She's there because that space, that night, that solitude is hers to command. It's a strange kind of power, the sort people overlook because it doesn't announce itself with noise. It arrives with steady breathing in the quiet, with choices made that no one else will witness, with the invisible but undeniable rebuilding of a woman who doesn't need anyone else's approval to exist fully in her own skin. The night belongs to her because she makes it hers, not because someone else left it for her. She claims it with every decision, every refusal to run from herself, every moment spent facing the things she might have been too busy to notice in the daylight. And there's an undeniable courage in that. Courage that isn't about grand gestures or dramatic declarations. It's not the stuff of movies or headlines. It's the simple, relentless kind, the kind that says, I will stay here with myself. I will face the thoughts that come. I will pick through the ache, the joy, the confusion, and the clarity without reaching for distraction. I will learn what it means to hold my own company, to take up space in my own life, without needing another voice to fill the quiet. That kind of courage changes a person. It reshapes the way she stands in the world, how she navigates rooms filled with voices and expectations, how she measures the worth of her own time and attention. In those quiet, unrecorded hours, she finds things no one else can give her. She finds a clearer sense of what matters, the names of the things she's been carrying too long, the shape of dreams she'd half forgotten. She figures out what she wants to set down and what she intends to fight for, even if no one else sees the battle. That clarity doesn't arrive in neat, organized packages. It comes in fragments, in waves, in sharp, unexpected bursts of knowing. And she gathers them quietly, deliberately, stringing them together into a kind of armor no one else can see, but she feels with every step she takes. Resilience built in those hours doesn't leave marks for others to admire. It leaves steadiness. It leaves a woman who can be told no and still hold her own, who can be underestimated and let it slide off her skin like water, who can stand in a storm and not be undone by it because she's already weathered herself. She's already sat in rooms with nothing but her thoughts and survived the weight of her own fears. She's already proven to herself, in the dark, when no one else was watching, that she is enough to carry her own name, her own story, her own future. This isn't about denying vulnerability. It's about understanding it, about seeing that strength and softness are not opposites, that a woman can ache and still be unbreakable, that she can long for company and still savor her solitude, that she can cry at midnight and still rise at dawn sharper than she was the day before. The night belongs to her not because she is untouched by fear or sadness, but because she chooses to meet those things on her own terms, to name them, to sit with them, to let them stay or send them away. That agency, that sovereignty over her own internal world, is what makes the night hers, and what follows belongs to her too. The choices she makes after the quiet, the paths she picks when the world starts moving again, the way she speaks, the things she refuses to accept anymore, all of it is shaped by those unseen nights. And it's not for anyone else to judge. It's not for anyone else to explain. It's hers. The strength, the softness, the new rules she writes for her life. The friendships she lets go of, the risks she finally takes, the words she finally says. The woman she decides to be when no one else is demanding a version of her. All of it belongs to her. There's something sacred about the parts of our lives no one else gets to witness. The parts built in solitude, in silence, without applause. They carry a different kind of weight because they aren't performance. They're not curated for anyone else's eyes. They're forged in the moments we almost break but don't. In the moments we feel small but remember our worth. In the seconds where we choose to stay one more minute with ourselves when it would be easier to run. Those moments belong to her. The night belongs to her. And the world might never know what happened in those hours. They'll see a woman walking a little taller, speaking a little clearer, setting boundaries a little firmer. They'll call it confidence or independence or strength, without knowing the full weight of it. Without knowing the quiet negotiations she made with herself at 3 a.m., the fears she faced without a witness, the hope she stitched back together piece by piece when no one else was there to hold the thread. They'll see the result but not the making, and that's how it should be, because the night belongs to her. It's not a performance. It's not a confession. It's not something she owes anyone else. It's a place where she gets to be whole, in whatever shape that takes. Where she gets to fall apart and rebuild, to ache and heal, to plan and rest. And what she builds there in the dark is hers to carry into the world in the way she chooses. No explanation required, no permission asked, no approval needed. The night belongs to her, and when the sun rises, so does she.